Thank you, ladies, for being here. So, I've dedicated a lot of my career to female empowerment and to women that are really changing the game from the top down. And I am personally appreciative of all of you being here, kicking off the whole sportsy weekend. First question that we have is, the journey for women in sports, tech, and leadership has definitely been an uphill battle, but things are changing. What is it that is so important about being a pioneer and a barrier breaker as a woman in these spaces?
Okay, do we just jump in?
I feel like
however you want to do this,
jump in because
I feel like
we can
Cynt
do
has
this.
an answer.
Like we are excited about this. Okay,
Yes,
so
please.
let's go for it. And I'm just so happy to see everybody out there. I see some of the Mavs people out there. Go Mavs.
Go Mavs.
You know what? I think it's really important to break these barriers because you're showing that it can be done. Because often, I mean, you're showing not just, the little girls and little boys that women can do some amazing things, but you're showing everybody what can be done. Mm-hmm. And so what I always hope is that I do such a great job when I break some barrier, because usually you don't know you're breaking the barrier. I mean, somebody tells you you're the first this, you're the first that. Yeah. Usually
it's surprising.
You don't know that, especially, like now, you shouldn't be first, but it is what it is. And so you want to do a great job so that people will just automatically think that it's no big deal for somebody that looks like me to be in the job that I'm in. So, in fact, if I do a great job, somebody will actually want a woman to do the job. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of the importance of it, not to mention just the obvious that you are showing young girls and, in my case, little black kids, what's possible.
And I'd like to just pick up on that point. I do want to appreciate everybody for coming and Baron for putting this on. And, I think what you just noted, Cynt, is the important part about barrier breaking, and that is impact, right? It is, none of us are choosing to break barriers or be the first because we just want to be the first. We are choosing to be in these roles and in these positions to change the lives of people who look like us, to change the lives of the communities that we come from, and fundamentally shift the trajectory for little girls and little boys who never imagined that they could be the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. Or, frankly, the president of Emily's List, the largest political organization for women in this country. I have an 8-year-old daughter who deserves to be at whatever table of decision-making she wants to be at, and it's my job, the most important job I have as a parent, is to make sure that she can do that. And so every day, choosing to wake up and do the thing to have the impact, I think is what's shifting in this moment. And as our vice president says, you may be the first, but make sure you're not the last.
Can't be the last. Can't be the last. Can't be the last.
Visibility really matters. And I can remember waking up when, the Forbes 30 under 30 would come out, or all the different lists, right? And kind of crawling through it going, I want to find people that look like me. I want to find people who have done things that I want to do, or, set the bar and the barrier, breaking barriers where I want to go. And the fact is that early in my career, there weren't enough folks that looked like me. And it's important because, we've heard this so many times, you can't be what you can't see, but it's really true. And it's incredibly important to have, folks in these sorts of roles taking up space and, and providing visibility to folks so that, growing up, they scan those lists too, and there's lots of folks that look like them.
And in my role as an attorney, it's very important. I work in hip-hop, and so it's not a lot of women. It's male-dominated, and only 4% or less people of color are attorneys. So having someone that looks like me who understands the deals from both sides, I've represented the player, the athlete, the celebrity, and also large corporations. So I went in-house at large firms so I can learn how those deals are structured and then take it to my community, take it back to a place like REVOLT where I'm making sure that we are getting the proper deals, that we are getting treated and paid fairly, and that there's a woman that can say, this is not right, and you are going to pay us what we're worth.
Period.
Thank you, ladies. So how can we continue to create space moving forward for women and people of color and every type of marginalized community that has not seen their space at the table? How can we create space for them moving forward? What does that look like in your particular space, in your particular organization? I feel like Cynt, she's just ready. She has it.
Oh, but I'm gonna be polite. See, we've been in the back. We have bonded, okay? These are my new sisters right here. We are getting ready to change the world even more. So where's Barron? Thank you for putting this together. We are getting ready to do some amazing things. And I think what we talked about in the back is that in our individual spaces, we get to keep this moving forward. I know for us at the Mavs, we started something. Well, first of all, when I first got there were 0 women and 0 people of color in leadership, in permanent leadership positions when I got there. And within 90 days, I had 50% women and 50% people of color at my table. Okay? And they're amazing. I mean, I see Katie Edwards back there. I see Kalia back there. I can't see anybody else back there, but I know they're back there. That was important for us because the vision that I set out when I got there is that we would set the global standard for diversity and inclusion because that's how you really make a business better. We need everybody at the table. And so we think every day about what is it that we can do to make sure that women are empowered, they're educated, obviously they're paid. I mean, the very first thing I did was address any gender pay equity issue that we had. And fortunately, it wasn't that bad. But we have a program called Girls Empowered by Mavericks, where we are pouring into girls from the ages of 9 to 14, because usually that's when they drop out of sports. And a lot of things start to happen. So we're very intentional about that. We have the NCAA Final Four coming up in Dallas in a couple of months, and y'all just wait. Y'all just wait. We have some amazing, amazing things planned there. And then we do a lot of community work to just really focus on women and girls. Katie Edwards out there is the head of our Mavs Foundation, and that's one of our pillars, to really pour into women in all aspects of their lives, physical, mental, health, economic, you name it. And to really get all of us out there as leaders to show what can be done. So one of our mottos is don't talk about it, be about it. And so we have a program called Mavs Take Action, and we focus on women, girls, the community, you name it. We're about it.
Love it.
Yeah, people talk about a pipeline problem, and that's it's just bold. I mean, when you hear a statistic like that within only 100 days, yeah, that you can change the numbers so significantly. The pipeline's not the problem; it's laziness. And in every organization that I've worked in, the responsibility I feel in some ways to make sure that women who are early on in their careers, are seeing things that they can be, but also are being brought to the table. So I'll strategically be looking for opportunities to open doors, open meetings, make things more transparent, and actually make the roles that I'm in look less sort of convoluted than they seem, right? Because a lot of the time I think people look up and they go, I don't know if I can do that job, actually. That's a big deal. That's a VP job. That's a big role. And so, my favorite is to blow the door wide open and let everybody see what's going on in those rooms so that they also feel like those are spaces that they can take part in and be a part of.
And I hire interns all the time, whether it's for REVOLT or any other company that I'm working for. If I know across sports media someone's looking for a job or an opportunity, I'm always recommending and making sure that I let people know I have the resources. They are mine if I know your why. So I'm not recommending everybody. If you can tell me exactly what you want to do and why you're doing it, then I'm opening the door for everyone. And if it's not at those companies and any side projects that I'm working on, if it's my podcast or any research I'm doing, I always make sure I bring someone along with me because I didn't have that. I'm still navigating it myself and have excelled very quickly in my career, but I would have loved to have that mentor and woman to guide me. And because I still don't have it, I bring people along with me along the ride.
And the one thing that I would offer, interestingly, we were talking about this a little bit in the back, it's sort of how foundationally across all of the industries, it matters who's in the decision-making, policy-making seat that undergirds every bit of what is happening across the industries, across communities. And so while we often can be turned off by the word politics, I would offer us to engage in the process of policymaking and who the people are that are in those seats making that policy. And when Emily's List was created, there was one woman who had been elected in her own right to serve in the U.S. Senate, one, and that was in 1985. All of the policies that are guiding our lives, whether it's antitrust or FMLA, are determined by who we elect to those seats of power. And when you don't have representation, there's no way to think about, to expect the needs of communities to be fully represented when those communities aren't at that table, right? And so when I think about continuing the work and making sure that in the space in which I occupy, that we are continuing these conversations. One, it's our mission to continue these conversations. And two, it's about making sure that we inject ourselves at the intersection of every industry and every conversation. We are not relegating our political future and the policy future of this country to some people who may only have access because they're the only ones who get the chance to be in the room. Making sure that an organization like Emily's List is here is an important part of how I feel my responsibility to continue this conversation and make sure that we all know that we own it together.
And we definitely do, because, sister, we were so proud when you got into this role. I was actually on a call about a year ago when Laphonza came and talked to us. It's an organization called Win with Black Women. And when she finished talking, we felt so empowered, like we are truly represented, because we know the value of public policy and we know how it impacts literally every single aspect of our lives. And to know we have that representation was a huge deal to us. So congratulations, sister. We're proud of you.
Thank you, ladies. Hell yes. For this next question, I think we'll start with Desiree and maybe just go down the line. I'm curious to hear about your big moment. What is the moment in your career, in your life, in your journey as a woman in these spaces where you saw what you wanted and got yourself there?
That is a really great question. Being a lawyer is a lonely and thankless job most of the time. We work behind the scenes, but we are the ones that make things happen. We structure those deals, we write it, we draft it, we take all the bullets for everybody else, and then they move on to the next, and they don't say anything else. And so I was working at these really large white corporations and just being an individual contributor, and I knew that I was capable of more. And so I quit my job. I had a bunch of friends who were creatives, and I told them I'm starting my own law practice, and I just helped them all maintain ownership of all the art and the work that they were creating for all of these companies and brands. And so, again, I mentioned earlier playing this inside-outside game where I went to these corporations so I can take this knowledge back to my people. I'm living my big moment now doing that at REVOLT. I'm able to, thank you. So it's really exciting for me to be at a company who shares the same ethos, core ethos that I have. My personal mission is the advancement, education, and protection of Black culture. And REVOLT is about the same thing. And I'm happy that we are on the same accord and going to continue to take over this space and get what's ours and get our money first.
Get our money.
Yeah.
Get our money.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cynt, how about you?
Okay, my big moment, and I'll give a professional moment because I had a personal moment as well with my kids. But my professional moment, and it was actually in this job, is when I walked into a staff meeting about 4 months into my job, and the seats were filled. Okay, my very first staff meeting was all white men at the table, and I was surprised, having worked where I did it for AT&T for 36 years and focused a lot on diversity, equity, inclusion, and different voices at the table. That was actually surprising to me. And so when I walked in a staff meeting about 4 months after that, and half the people were women. And it was so it was so striking because all the women were sitting in the front. Katie probably remembers this, in the front in a horseshoe. And then all the men were out there. And that actually struck me because I'm like, why aren't they all mixed in? And I thought to myself, I said, okay, I'm going to have to talk to these women afterwards because I believe in truly bringing people along. Diversity is one thing, but inclusion is something else. You can be invited to the party, but somebody's got to teach you how to dance. You can't just be on the sidelines trying to figure out what's happening in the culture and all that. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe they don't really know how to show up in this room, and they need to just blend in. And so I thought the men, and then I thought, okay, well, maybe the men all took their seats together and left the women by themselves. And so after the staff meeting, which I was happy to have half women in the room and half people of color, and I called the women in, and I said, okay, I need everybody kind of mixed in. I don't need everybody, you to stand out like that. And I said, do I need to talk to the men? Did they all sit together on purpose? Because if they're being, if they're excluding you, I'm getting ready to address that too. And so they all smiled and said, oh, no, we all sat together on purpose. That we're just so happy to be there, and we're running this now, so we told them to sit down there. I was like, okay. So I was just so happy to know that I had this vision that I wanted women in the room to represent a sports team and what we can do. And it was a moment where I thought, okay, I had a vision, and it happened. Because they're amazing women, and they deserve to be at that table.
I love it. Laphonza, how about you?
I have an interesting journey, and I feel like I've, at a relatively young age, I've written a number of chapters in my life. One chapter that I wrote was 20 years in the labor movement. I was the youngest person elected to serve as leader of the largest local union in the state of California, second largest in the country. And I made it happen for myself. And I never would have thought about it this way because of the work that it was until the question was posed. But prior to me going to California, I was working in our national union headquarters in Washington, D.C. I was 25 years old. And the leader of the union in California found himself facing federal indictment charges. And there was no one who wanted to go to California and lead this union after all of this scandal had happened. And the union was a union that represented home care workers, nursing home workers, occupations 90% held by women and women of color, particularly in a state like California. And my mom called me. I just happened to be talking to my mom one day, and we were talking about all of the jobs she had had. I grew up in Mississippi. My dad died when I was 16. My mother had worked 3 jobs, sometimes all at the same time, to make sure that me and my 2 brothers had an opportunity for better. And she had worked as a home care worker. She had worked in a nursing home as an LPN. She had worked in commercial office buildings as a security officer. And so what I saw was the opportunity to continue to work for women like my mom, who never had health insurance until she was 60 years old with the passage of Obamacare. Wow. So I took my 25-year-old self to the president of the largest union in the United States, SEIU. I went to his office and told him that I wanted to take the job in Los Angeles. I wanted to earn the vote of those members in California. And he, lovely white man, gracious in so many ways, patted me on my head and said, "It's not your time." That was in August. By April, he actually had to come to me and ask me if I would go to Los Angeles and take this job. And the opportunity for me to continue to serve women like my mom has been the greatest opportunity of my life. But for my own youthful silliness and courage, I would say, I might have missed my big moment. I might have missed my big moment. Working for those women, helping to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, helping to win paid time off for healthcare workers in a state like California. You would have thought that that was something that had already been done. Helping to, empower people to find their own collective power in forming their own union. Like it was the job of and responsibility of a lifetime. And I think it set me up to be able to value the community organizer who thinks of herself today just as a community organizer, doesn't yet see herself in Congress. But it also helps me to see the Representative Cori Bush, the Representative Jasmine Crockett, the Vice President Kamala Harris, the Senator next Senator Barbara Lee, but I can't say that.
We'll say that later.
All right, we'll say that later.
I just talked to Barbara. We'll say that later.
But knowing, having spent so much time with women who every day people consider to be ordinary, but who have the power inside them to do extraordinary things, is sort of what that big moment empowered me to do in the next moment.
Very nice. Lindsey, how about you?
How do you follow that up? I'm a technologist and futurist, but my first love was sport. And when I got to the workforce, and I entered the workforce, I was looking around and I'm like, what the hell is this? I was used to growing up on teams and where you had coaches who would push you to be bigger than you thought you could be, better than you thought you could be. And those were my leaders. Those were the people that I reported into effectively in sport. And, they always believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. And I got into the workforce and went like, this sucks. The leadership that I had around me were more concerned with keeping their own roles and pushing me into a box and pushing me down and keeping me down and not allowing me to grow and be who I could be. And they sure didn't believe I could be bigger than I was. And I looked around and went like, this is crazy. This isn't the way that work has to be. And this isn't the way that life has to be. And I knew from sport that it could be way different. And so I got it into my mind that I was going to become a leader as quickly as possible so that I could nurture teams around me the way that I had been brought up in sport, which was where, you would pick out your squad, pick out your team, value people for all the different things and assets and skills that they brought to the table, and then you would coach them and encourage them to be bigger than you and better than you could ever be. And so that was the big one for me, is that I couldn't see, actually. I didn't walk into work and go, this is the thing I want to be. I didn't have this big moment of like, that's it, that's who it is. It was actually the fact that there was none of that. And I wanted to re-engineer that and engineer it on an experience that I thought was a lot more nurturing, which was always sports. So that was it for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. So looking forward 20 years from now, assuming we're all still here, that the planet hasn't burst, what do those spaces for women, for people of color, for marginalized communities, what do those look like 20 years from now? Law, sports, tech, politics, and why is it so important that women play a part in that future?
I think women, particularly in law, will be getting the credit that they deserve. For me, my example, I'm stepping out and coming from behind the scenes because people need to see, no matter where you come from, you can be successful. You don't have to play in the background. The makeup of a lawyer looks different, and get the credit that you deserve. You do not have to be fearful. You do not have to think that you are too young, you are too black, you are too this, you are too that. So we will be getting the credit. We will be running all of the organizations. I think we do most of the work anyway, but we never get the credit and our name signed on the paper, and not just as an attorneys, but women in general, and also get paid what we deserve. And so I foresee us being at the forefront and all having jobs and not letting AI take us out of the game.
Exactly. I agree with you. I mean, we'll be running things. We run it now. And we'll own more teams, and we will have more women in leadership, and we'll own more businesses. So, I mean, if you look at all the different aspects of my business, I think you will see more and more women in those spaces. 20 years from now. But that's if we put the work in. I mean, we can have this great vision, but we have to put the work in. And so we have to put it in, going back to what Laphonza talked about, in all aspects of public policy to make sure that we are creating environments where young women and others can thrive. And so, yes, if you look at what's happened just in corporate America in the past 20 years, we made a little bit of progress with female CEOs. I mean, just a little bit. So to really push it forward for 20 years, we got to put the work in right now. But we'll take over. We'll take over.
I think about it's such an interesting question because I think about one of the first set of remarks that I gave when I took this role as Emily's List as the first black woman, first woman of color to lead this organization, but also the first mom to lead the organization. And so I think about the next 20 years through the lens of my 8-year-old. What is the life that I want her to have? I am clear. While I know that these women here and all of you will help to create the society that will wrap its arms around her, I know that there are some things that I need to do now too. I don't want her to cast her first ballot when she's 18, go to the ballot box for the first time, and this country still hasn't elected a black woman governor. I don't want her to go to the ballot box and cast her vote for the first time and women still don't have control over their own bodies. I don't want her to go to the ballot and cast her vote for the first time, and we still haven't yet elected a woman to the White House in the top seat. And so the work that we have to do now is being unrelenting in demanding the kind of representation that keeps all of those doors open. Frankly, in some instances, kicks those doors open to ensure that not only my daughter, but America's daughters has the ability to walk through those doors 20 years from now without questioning if they're enough, without questioning whether they belong, and knowing that the men who are in those rooms are there to be partners with them and are there to help build the kind of society together that both of them deserve.
And that's the work we all get to do together.
Yes.
We got 10 years till she
10
gets
years.
to vote.
10
So
years
get out
till
and
she's
vote.
18.
We got to get out and vote.
And we got to keep her
vote.
safe in school. We got to keep her safe in school. We got some work to do.
And Lindsey, in the last 30 seconds, what is your vision?
Look, you said AI, so I'm going to get a little nerdy on you.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I think so. Artificial intelligence has the possibility of really commoditizing knowledge and information. And if that's the case, something I think about a lot is what are the skills that we will need as humans in the future that are valuable? And I think that there are skills that women possess innately today. They're the ability to love, to connect, to empathize, to build relationships, those sorts of things. And I think those are going to be some of the most important skills that humans can have going forward. And my hope is that we go from a woman in a top seat being an extraordinary thing to that being a very, very ordinary thing using some of those skill sets.
I want to thank you women for being here and for carving out the spaces the way you have. I think it takes a unique superpower to see yourself in the path you have in a bigger place and then to intentionally get there, but also to create space for people behind you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everybody, can we give them a round of applause?
Thank you.